Good evening for the folks joining from India, and good afternoon and good morning from the folks joining from the US. I have with me Lisa Witted. Uh, we will get started onto the. Uh, we'll get started with our discussion. So, folks, I'm Deepesh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Work and Sync. Been an entrepreneur in the space of hybrid work and commute for 12 years now. The goal of the company is to enhance employee experience and productivity through automation of workplace touchpoints. Lisa, who joins us, is the founder and the chief transformation officer of a workplace transformation facilitation, which is based in Portland. She's also a consultant to Advanced Workplace Associates in the UK. Lisa has a passion for improving workplaces and processes. She is driven to make a dent in the abysmal Gallup statistic that 87% of the people worldwide are disengaged at work. And we're going to surely talk about this during our chat. Lisa works with leaders who want to make positive change for their people and for the planet. Her approach focuses on ensuring all voices are heard in the change process. Actually, her first book, Work Better, Save the Planet, will be published in the summer of 2021. I wish you all the best, Lisa, for that.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Sure. Welcome. For the audience, a couple of announcements. Please feel free to ask Lisa or me any question you might have in the Q&A section. We'll be happy to pick a few of them and answer it towards the end of the conference. For the ones which we will not be able to answer, we will get in touch with you individually. So shall we get started, Lisa?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Sure. So right, jumping into it, Lisa, while I was checking your profile on LinkedIn, one of the things which you've mentioned is that you believe in the art of possibility. The way things have always been done should not block us from creating how we want the things to be. With this context, do you think that the future of the work is hybrid?
Yes, thank you. Hybrid working, I believe, is our opportunity to improve on aspects of the workplace that really were frustrating to people before COVID. People, before they were sent home from work, and surveys that we did, folks were frustrated in the office. And I think we have a tendency to romanticize how things were. It's like that saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So maybe there's this longing to get back to the office, but what folks hated about the office is there were constant interruptions, there was noise, and there was a lack of quiet places to focus, to escape that noise. So what folks have found in remote working, in some, but not all situations, but in some situations, they've discovered those quiet places in their own homes, places where they can focus and not be interrupted. So hybrid also, you had done a survey, and according to your survey results, hybrid means not just choice in where I work, but it means choice in when I work. It's that flexibility of where and when. I think 63% of your survey respondents said that they wanted flexibility in location and time. And so what hybrid working can give us is this opportunity to create a world of work that works for more people. And I'll just share what I mean about that. We have typically worked Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. And this is the way of working since the Industrial Revolution, when people had to leave their homes, go stand over machinery in the factory, and they worked all day and then they went home. And the school schedules have always been structured around a Gregorian calendar. The kids had summers off to work in the fields. Most schools start later in the day after people have started work, and let out earlier in the day when people are still working. So all of these schedules have never made sense and never aligned. So if we can rethink how we have created the world of work to support people with all these other activities, which are such an important part of life, then I think that hybrid can give us that answer and that opportunity for new possibilities.
No, absolutely. I think, as you rightly said, this culture of work, which was 9 to 5, 5 days a week, was kind of during the industrial era. And I'm sure in the last 100 years, we've realized that it can be changed, and ensure the return to work after COVID does give us an opportunity. What I'm going to do is, for the benefit of the audience, I'm just going to quickly share the result of the survey which was conducted on LinkedIn. So as you can see that 63% of the folks said that to them hybrid means when they have flexibility both of the choice of the location as well as time. So I think that's what we will see that the world will evolve into as we progress further. So now moving on to my next question to you, Lisa, is that when an organization chooses to for a hybrid work model, how much flexibility do the employees get? Do the employees get to choose the days they want to work from the office, or do you think it's going to be predetermined by the managers?
Mm. It's a great question. And I know a lot of companies are having these conversations right now. What we know through research is that when people have choice, employee engagement improves and productivity can increase. So it is important to involve employees in this conversation for a couple of reasons. We know also when people's voices are heard, and you know I'm a big believer in that, including all voices in the conversation about change. Research shows that when employees believe their voice has been heard, they are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform their best work. So clearly that ties to productivity and engagement. And when we think about how to do this effectively. So I want to say it's not a free for all. It doesn't mean that everybody just gets to say, I want to work this day and that's it, period, end of story. It's important to have the conversation about what is the work that's being done, what has to happen, and then how can we support that work being done in an effective and productive way. So hybrid is a tool to help us, but it's not the end all and be all. There are all these other components that we need to think about. And I like to conduct listening sessions. So when organizations can have listening sessions, ask specific questions of their employees, let them talk to each other and let the managers hear what they have to say, not making judgment, just listening. It gives people a chance to share. They often have great ideas and they feel heard. And then the manager has some information to work with to then build something that's sustainable and makes sense for the work that needs to happen. So I don't think it's the managers only make the decision or the employees only make the decision. I think there's a bit more nuance to it, but the process of the conversation can create a better result for folks.
Yeah, I think very, very rightly said, and I totally concur with it that as long as you get to do these listening sessions or at least hear the voice of the folks, I think the result is going to be better for both the managers as well as the teammates. And I think very rightly put, even the statistics, as you suggest, that it's 5 times better. So absolutely, I think I totally agree with that. Now, leading on to that, in addition to that, how do we make our workplace more adaptive and agile?
Yeah. So I think the workplace, where I would joke with clients and say, well, the workplace would be easy to solve. We were just dealing with space and furniture, but we're not. We're dealing with people, and people are squishy, and people have beliefs and feelings and emotions. And so because of that, because the workplace is a complex idea or a complex activity, there's those conversations again can feed so well into thinking about what then happens with the workplace, or what do we do with the workplace. So when we can think about the behaviors that are going to allow us to do our best work, one of the good questions are, what are behaviors you want to keep? What are behaviors you want to discard that are no longer serving you? And what are new behaviors you want to encourage? That when you have those conversations and have employees talk about that, then it allows you to reimagine the workplace or the role of the office, let's say, not even just the workplace, but the role of the office in supporting all people, and not the narrow segment that the workplace often has been designed for. And we've got to remember, there are people that are not feeling comfortable bringing their whole self to work. And what do I mean by that? I mean that I know that there are the people on the spectrum, neurodiversity. We talk about Asperger's, different neuro atypical issues that people are dealing with. They're great workers and contributors, but they're limited by the workplace that they've been put into. And then we've got diversity around gender. We know there's more than two genders, and yet often offices only have two restrooms, male and female. So we know, I think one of the statistics, 50% of all LGBTQ plus people stay closeted at work. So people haven't felt comfortable bringing their whole selves. So when we rethink what the role of work in the workplace can be, it's our opportunity to be more inclusive and be more considerate about what will allow people to do their best work. And why this matters is think about the energy that would go into you having to hide a portion of yourself. If I had to go to a place and not feel like I could be fully myself, that energy that I'm taking to hide myself, it could be better to put into the work I'm doing, right? I could bring my full self and be a full contributor. So that's why I think that we need to really think differently around what this role can be of the workplace, and how we do our best work.
No, absolutely. One of the things which I remember at this inclusivity, and I think getting more people, giving them this space, obviously apart from what you spoke, is that one of the large tech firms and semiconductor firms, I think, which does a lot of work on research and lab, is kind of cleaning up the slate and saying that we will have far more labs and collaborative spaces, and we don't need so many kind of desks and cubicles anymore, because fundamentally that's what we contribute. So I kind of see what you were saying. Now let me get on to this which I mentioned during the start, that you've mentioned that an abysmal, the statistics from Gallup, that 87% of the employees worldwide are disengaged at work. That's like we spend a big portion of our life at work, and a lot of it, 87% of us are disengaged at work. Would there be specific design approach for offices when employees now come back to work, especially when they're going to come only a few days a week?
Yeah, and it's so many things go into that, right? But people are not engaged, and we also, I did want to just do a reminder that we're really at this point when we're talking about remote work and hybrid work, we're only talking about 30% of the workforce. Perhaps that's a US statistic, but only about 30% of the workforce has a job that would allow them to do remote work. So we've got to acknowledge there's many frontline workers and people that have got to be, and so that 87% statistic of people disengaged applies to all, not just white collar workers. But that said, one of the most important things is that somebody's job or the work that they're doing is matched to their own strengths, abilities, and knowledge. And so it's a fit, not just of the physical space, but the work that I'm doing. And we also know an intrinsic human motivators are autonomy and mastery of new knowledge. So autonomy in telling me what you want done, but let me figure out how to get it done. This ties into something called results only work environment, or ROW, which also is very important to think about in hybrid work. It's an important consideration when you think about performance management and evaluating, are people doing their work? Are they being productive? The other thing that I am such a firm believer in is purpose and vision. And when people know that the work that they're doing is truly making a difference for the organization, in the organization's achieving a vision, then they feel more strongly connected. That's another intrinsic human motivator. So when organizations are having these conversations and these listening sessions, it's also really important that they pause and say, hey, does everybody know what our vision is? Do we even know what our vision is? What is it we're trying to achieve? And once we're clear on that, that can galvanize people like you and believe. If they know what that vision is and purpose, and it resonates with their own values and what they want to do. When I was in high school, my mother gave me a plaque that said, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. And that's how I think the power of a vision is. When you've got a clear vision, when people are afraid of hybrid or managers are concerned about controlling or whatever, if they're all galvanized around that vision, then those fears and barriers can be dealt with. They can go away.
Sure. Um, um, I think, yeah, if we all huddle ourselves around that vision, I think we can move mountains. But on the same point, Lisa, there was another survey which we did of looking into check what's like the main reason
Yeah.
for folks that why they want to return. So I think
Yeah.
one of the largest reason was they found that they can easily collaborate.
Mm,
So while we are at home, we can do the focus work in our own quiet place
mm,
without getting disturbed. But I think the need, at least for that part of the economy, which is a knowledge-based economy, uh, law firms, tech firms, bankings, etc., and a lot more. I think huddling there, and including like a startup like ours, right? I think collaboration is the biggest reason which gets done. Even uh, uh, chairman of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, did mention that the biggest
yeah.
reason they want to get folks at Microsoft back. And I think, needless to say, I think socializing, right? We're all social animals, so make sure that we have all those uh, coffee conversations with our folks. So that's kind
Right.
of the interesting statistics, which is sort of very known and we've realized in the last 16 months. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll just, if you don't mind, the collaboration, we also call it social cohesion. So we know that there are 6 factors that really impact people's productivity. And 3 of the most important in a virtual or hybrid working mode are trust, information sharing, and social cohesion. And social cohesion is what you just described. It's being together, it's collaborating, it's connecting. When we have that, we're more likely to build trust. And when we have trust, we're more likely to share information with each other. And organizations are all about, right? We need to know we've got the right information at the right time in a timely fashion. So collaboration. So this is again the opportunity when you rethink the purpose of the office. Instead of all of those desks that are empty, let's remember this too. Before COVID, utilization studies showed that offices, workstations were often empty 40 to 60% of the time. They were empty because people are mobile. We don't need to be tethered to a desk. We don't need to be tied to that factory machine like we did 100 years ago. And so those spaces were not well utilized then. Now, knowing that hybrid working and people are going to be not present in the office at least a few days a week, by God, that's a lot of empty space. So why not think, how can we then now create great collaborative spaces where people can connect well and really get the work done that they want to do as a team? And it's funny, I shared with you, I just did a session with my colleague about food
yeah,
and the impact of Mediterranean diet on cognitive. And we were talking about, man, how about taking your office and rethinking that lunchroom to be a space where people really can come together and make a meal together and share it? It's a team building thing, social cohesion, trust, good food. And food is primal, man, right? Like sharing a meal, breaking bread, that's like as basic as it gets. So maybe no red wine, okay, but all the other stuff could happen. And it could be, so we think about how can we be intentional? And that's really what we're talking about. So don't just have people come back to the office to come back to the office, but how do you intentionally create an experience for them where they want to connect with each other? And then they're also doing the good work that needs to be done. Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. And just as a point, I think you've touched upon that, keeping so many desks. I think because of the flexibility of work, if let's say an organization chooses an alternate working day, and you could kind of remove some of those desks and make them different spaces, I think the saving could be as much as $25,000 to $30,000 per year. So that's kind of
Oh,
a
yeah.
that's a lot of money, which we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think, going to that question, to that thought process, Lisa, a little deeper there. What do you think that the workplace managers specifically should keep in mind while designing a hybrid office for different stakeholders, employees, managers, and the management?
Mm, mm. So I do think we need to reconsider the notion of shared office or shared workspaces. I know many organizations had done agile or shared working spaces or hoteling before COVID, but many were really slow to do that or cautious. Or even the other day, I just heard somebody say, "Oh yeah, we're going to only be in 2 or 3 days a week, but everybody's going to have their own assigned desk." And that just simply doesn't make sense in 2021. It just doesn't make sense. And I think about this stuff in a weird way, but I've thought about this a lot. And there are so many things in our lives that we share. We share cabs, trains, planes, library books, restaurant tables, church pews, shopping carts. We share so many things. And in the office, we share meeting room spaces, the lunchroom, the restrooms. But there are things we don't share, and they're very few. I don't share my pillow. I share my bed with my husband, but I don't share my pillow. I don't share my cell phone, and I don't share my toothbrush. But pretty much everything else I share. In the US, though, I don't share my desk. So it's on the sacred list. It's like, oh no, I can't share my desk. Yet, when you look at space utilization and then also let's look at climate change. Commercial buildings contribute 39% to carbon emissions. That is a huge amount of empty space that's not being used well, that's making a negative impact on the planet. So if we can change our behaviors and get used to the idea of sharing a workspace, knowing, and again, if there's variety, I really am a believer of variety in the workplace. So it's not just a desk I sit at, but there's a chair by the window I can sit at, or I can go into a focus room and shut the door and have a private conversation. I've got choice. That choice is so important. It's a much smarter use of space. It also is a better social connection opportunity. So think about a party you may have gone to where there were not very many people in a really big room. That's not really fun, is it? So there's a certain sweet spot of a little bit of energy and vibe that can come out of a little tighter connection. Not saying you can't be safe, still socially distanced and all, but I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that so a manager, to go back to your question really, which I might have gone on a little journey there. But I think what managers need to keep in mind is that what was in place before wasn't necessarily the best, wasn't serving people. And when you were reimagining what it could be, when you talk to your people and bring them into the conversation, you can potentially come up with some wonderful new ideas, and your folks will be happier because they were part of the conversation. There's more likely to be buy-in and excitement because they were invited into the conversation.
Yeah, I know. I think you've been constantly saying, and it's very important fact that we should make a note of it. I think involving in the decision making is more important than exactly what you decide. So I think that's well noted. But as a side fact, I think not only are the desks sacred in the US. I think I've been talking to people in India and globally. I think people kind of treat it as their own territory. So I think. But I remember, I think it needs to start at the top. A couple of weeks back, Noel Quinn, the CEO of HSBC, declared that his desk is not his desk anymore. So he's declared right at the top, the HSBC CEO, that all desks in HSBC are going to be open in the London office and globally. So I think
that is excellent. And that's, the leaders need to lead the way. Yeah. It's just like with kids. It's not what you say, it's what you do. So, and the leaders can step in and have the belief and show the way. That's awesome to hear that. That's great. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So moving on, Lisa, what do you think is the flexibility in our current work landscape? And how do we exactly determine if an organization is flexible enough?
Yeah, the organizations are going to learn pretty quickly if they're flexible enough by what their employees do. We know that we've heard that 40% of employees are considering leaving their job right now. There is already a major talent war. It's tough, man, it's hard to get good people. So there's already a war for great talent. And so those companies that are perceived to be more flexible will be the winners. That's really what's going to come down to it. Employees are in the power seat right now, and they know it. So COVID has been a moment of reckoning. I think people have reconsidered, it's been a sort of a moment to pause in your life and think what's important to me and what matters and how do I want to be showing up in my life and what do I want to be doing. So there's been a real sort of like a midlife crisis, no matter what age you are, type of thing going on. So and those that have the luxury of choice, and again, we're not talking about all people in all positions, but those that have the luxury are really thinking about what's going to work for them. So how do you know you're flexible enough? By the reaction of your employees. And don't wait until that point. That's the thing. Why wait until then? Start having conversations now. Let them know you're open to hearing their thoughts. One of the organizations I've been talking with very smartly said, yeah, we're going to treat this as a pilot. We're not sure. We're trying to figure it out. And we're going to be transparent with our people and say, look, this is a pilot. We're going to try it and we're going to continue to do continuous feedback and continuous improvement. You just got to keep an open mind. And you got to get your work done. No question. You're trying to keep the lights on, but there's opportunities in this to save money, to really think differently. And it could have a positive impact, not just on your people, but on your bottom line.
No, absolutely. And to your question, I think employees, surely the talent which makes the organizations are at the driver's seat right now. In fact, some of the companies I know in their hiring and the offer letter itself are declaring these days that they are open to flexi working and hybrid working, and employees are taking that as a very important condition before they sign up. So I think one of the things which you've mentioned a couple of times during our conversation is the choice. So let me ask you, do you think that choice it would lead to like a higher engagement or productivity? Is there a correlation?
Yeah, definitely it does. There's research that shows how choice leads to higher engagement, which in turn leads to higher productivity. And this is a few years old, but it was one from Steelcase that I've referenced quite a bit. The most highly engaged employees have greater flexibility to make choices about where and how they work. And they can move around the office easily, change postures, choose where they want to be based, and doing the tasks that need to get done. So, and then the other statistic that I often reference is the two most common results of engaged employees are willingness to do more than expected and higher productivity. So that's why employee engagement matters, because the research shows that people will be more productive if they're more engaged. We also know the world of work has, I think, replaced many people's sense of community and volunteerism. So over the years, as people have worked longer hours, they've had less time to contribute to their own communities in a volunteer way. And volunteerism used to be ways that build connection and community for people. So work, in a way, has become our community. And work has such an important ripple effect on all of us. Work, if I feel engaged, I feel productive, I feel like a contributor, I'm more likely to be kinder to my family, to my spouse. I'm more likely to want to do more for my own community. It has an impact on mental health, stress, well-being, depression, opioid use, substance abuse. So this idea of helping people have great moments at work, it's not just a selfish bottom line thing. It's better for our whole society. It's better for our world. So if we can do it in a way that supports people's own contribution and well-being and can help the planet and can help society, I mean, man, you just like sign me up. I want that job.
No, I think the it's very interesting the way you've kind of shared these data points of how choice is leading to more engaged folks, which is leading to higher productivity, which is obviously good for the company and the bottom line, as simple as that. But in the broader run, it kind of helps the community and the family. So I think very, very rightly put, and backed by the research that again over and over, that giving choice will result into better stuff for all of us. Uh, so, uh, Lisa, do you think that one of the things which comes up quite often is that will hybrid reduce the culture of face time and the importance of being noticed, which is very important for career progression? and as some of the folks say that FOMO, fear of missing out, is
Mm.
what is like the bad part of hybrid. How do you think about this?
Yeah, let's recognize hybrid for what it is. I see it as another tool that allows us to do our work. So computers, when they came onto the scene, they were introduced 30 years ago. They allowed us to modify how we work to be more efficient. We've got Zoom and Teams that's allowed us to work differently over the past 16 months. And hybrid working is just another tool. It's going to support us in allowing us to be more productive. It's not the answer, and it's not the only answer. So all that said, I think we need to look at how we can connect people, how we conduct performance evaluations, how we do one-on-one meetings and check-ins, and find ways to have authentic connections and build relationships. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the relationships. It really is. Thomas Merton was a philosopher, and he shared, I wish I could memorize this quote, but he talks about how really that's it, that you can think you're putting the work in, but at the end of the day, what matters is the relationships that you've built. And so I think that in order for people to do their best work, we need to think about the norms, our culture, our behaviors, how we communicate, and make sure we're being inclusive. Don't get tripped up by bias. We've all got bias. It's just how we're created as humans. So rather than me saying, well, I'm in the office and you're in the office, and so then I'm going to treat you differently and give you more opportunities, let's recognize that is a bias that happens and then figure out how we can created an area or a way of working that takes that away, that allows us to recognize it and create a process that is inclusive. We can't just say, oh, no, not my problem. I'm not going to worry about that. We've got to figure it out. We figured it out on everything else while we're trying on equity. We're at least we're aware of what we got to do. So conducting research, looking at results only work environment called ROW. There's an awesome article in the New Yorker by Cal Newport, who also wrote Deep Work, one of my favorite books. And oh gosh, what is the name of it? It's like sustainable work. I can't remember it, but we'll provide a link for your listeners. Or if they want to just Google it, Cal Newport, the New Yorker, something about sustainable work, you'll find it.
Sure. Sounds good, I think, Lisa. What I was thinking, I think, is that maybe I will quickly try to share some of my learnings when I've been talking to a lot of companies globally on how are they perceiving as hybrid work in reality, and some of the challenges which they think they will face about it. So kind
Yeah,
of.
no, I'd love to hear that. I also, I'm passionate about technology and what it can do to help us be more productive. I call myself a tech Luddite. I'm not very smart at all about it, but I know that I can't be afraid of that technology has the answer for many of us, and we need to lean into it. So yeah, I'd love to hear some of the things that you can share.
Sure. So I've just been gathering. This is some data points right off the net. Various global organizations. I've just listed a few of them, like Google, Dell, Microsoft, Randstad, etc., which are thinking through as of now different models of hybrid work. Let's not get too deep into what exactly are they adopting. I think the summary is that they have various level of employee flexibility. Some of them are saying that my employees come on a Wednesday, while some of them saying that please come 2 days in a week. Somebody says, oh, you can come as much as you want to, as long as your manager is fine. So I think people are really trying to emphasize on hybrid. But if you kind of double click on this problem statement of hybrid, right, while it looks nice to talk about it, what at least I think of it as a technologist is that there are these two axes. On one axis, on the y-axis, you've got these complexity of when do I show up. I would like to come when my teammates are coming. I'm going to come when my colleague is coming, so that I can actually do this brainstorming or collaboration. Why should I show up just to work on a desk all by myself, right? So I think then that is complexity, especially as the teams kind of grow in sizes and the organizations grow in sizes. So that's one part which, like a HR leader or as a business manager, you are worried about. On the other axis, here on the slide is the x-axis. That's the challenge by the workspace manager, by the corporate office managers and the workspace managers, which is what we talked about a few minutes back. That if employees don't come so often, then should I just keep my office seats unoccupied and vacant? I'm sure someday my CEO or a CFO would ask that, why do we need so many office seats empty, right? You would ideally want it to be an elastic office, right? Kind of adjusts depending upon the number of people to come in. So I think these are two constraints which are pulling it at the opposite end, which is the scheduling flexibility and the office manager's flexibility. And you will see over time that different companies will adopt, would fall on different levels of this. But what is important to think is that implementing this is going to be challenging. I'll just give you an example of something which I have seen. One of the banks which we spoke to has done, and frankly by using Work in Sync, is that as a team manager or as a teammate, I think they're able to figure out and get a very easy view into the team calendars of the other teammates, so that they can figure out. In this case, it is shown that the day is Thursday, 25th of April, when all of them are planning to work from the office, right? So if I'm the fifth guy, I would say, yeah, let me also plan my office visit on a Thursday rather than on any other day, right? And you see that depending upon people's personal choices and preferences, this is going to change week over week. While initially you can do over WhatsApp, phone calls, but beyond a certain point, kind of you will lose track of this scheduling and the planning problem, which is the base of collaboration, right? So I think that's something which I think technology can beautifully solve, a multi-level collaboration. And I think just extending this the problem statement, that when four of us have decided that we're going to show up at the office, basically you would kind of want to make sure that you all sit together, either close to the window seat or wherever it is, that all of you sit together. And so there's going to be like these places which you can book together, either individually, close to your teammates, or probably as a union. So I think the thought process is that while hybrid as a word just looks, yes, it's the best of both the worlds, but if sort of not implemented right, I think it can become worst of both the worlds. So I think
Yeah.
that's something which I just wanted to
Awesome.
quickly
Yeah. Yeah.
quickly
And that is exactly what the clients I'm talking with, that is exactly what they're wrestling with. They call it the scheduling problem. Like, how do we figure this out? We know we accept that folks are going to work remotely. Great. But now how do we figure out when they're going to be where? Yeah, that's exactly what people need to figure out. So,
sure.
but also to have the fluidity, again, to say, again, you showed in your chart, some are like, no, it's 3 days, it's these days, and others are more flexible. And yeah,
Sure.
so
So,
yeah.
Lisa, what I'm going to do is that we've got a few minutes left, and we'll see how many questions from the audience we can take up.
Yeah.
I'll read the first. I think this is specifically for you. What are some of the specific listening questions to ask employees? This is something which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so there are a couple of questions to ask. One is, what do we think will be successful? So what does success look like if we do this flexible way of working well? From your point of view as an employee, what does that look like? The behavior question: what are the behaviors that we want to encourage? What are the behaviors we want to let go of? What are the behaviors we had before that we want to keep? Which that also ties to culture. So that is another question to ask. And then one of the ones I always asked before COVID in a one-on-one conversation is, what allows you to have your best day at work? What allows you to do your best work? So it goes a bit to the productivity. And it's not just the physical, but how do I have a great day at work? Well, maybe I start the day with a chat with a colleague and over a coffee. But what happens in those conversations is I then have the listener report out what his or her partner said. So when you come to report out, you have to share what the other person said. That's a way to build listening skills and also empathy and connection. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to help us all have good days at work. And so many times that comes to our own behavior. So those are some of the questions that I think are helpful. But honestly, you can hold listening sessions at any point around any aspect. Ask a specific question and give, it doesn't take a lot of time. I give people 6 minutes. Talk with your partner for 6 minutes and then share back out.
Thank you. The next question is, each sector industry has its own work model requirements. What kind of a hybrid work model can the legal industries adopt, especially when there is a high client facing requirements?
Yeah.
Maybe,
that is so true. We say it's not a one size fits all, right? So I think legal is really interesting because legal does have high client facing requirements, but did you put your business on hold for the last 16 months? I have a feeling you were still meeting with your clients. And some people have been grateful for the opportunity to not have to travel into a city or park or whatever else. So again, I'm not saying it's worked great for everything, but it's taking what are the good things that have happened and what are the things that we can adapt and do differently. Mentoring is another thing the legal professional often is worried about too. But even in mentoring, I mean, if I'm sharing an office with a more senior partner, I'm hearing the conversation, and that's part of the mentoring. Perhaps you can do that with a Zoom meeting. I can just be sitting here and I'd be introduced as one of the young people that is getting, whatever. So you heard me at the beginning in the art of possibility. When people just immediately shut down and say, no, we can't do that, that's going to make me try even harder to find an answer, No. So
actually, interestingly, Lisa, we've seen a couple of our clients, especially from the legal industry, are very actively looking at implementing a hybrid workplace. And I think the fact is because they kind of travel, they're not mostly in the office. So why to kind of keep things reserved, etc. So I think it really, I would say my 2 cents would be legal would be a very good industry to kind of adopt a hybrid, genuinely a hybrid workplace solution.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Sure. There's one question. It says, "Hi Lisa, this is Partha. There appears to be a lot of focus on productivity within organization, but then there is a necessary ingredient of creativity. Creativity and innovation become very important at the early stage of product development, and productivity kicks in only in the later half of the product life cycle." Absolutely agree. I think for creativity and innovation to work well, face time is very important. Water cooler movements are very crucial. Do you reckon senior leadership may be currently overlooking this aspect and actually just focusing on productivity? I would agree. Very rightly said, Partha.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Partha. And the thing also is that intentional aspect coming back in. So I love systematic inventive thinking. SIT is a brainstorming process for creative development. And that can be done remotely. There are many brainstorming specific toward creative development that can happen. But and Partha's probably aware of this, there's also something called Random Coffee, which is an app. And it's a way for people to connect. We've been using it at AWA over the last 10 months anyway. So I get partnered up with somebody that I may not know very well, and we schedule time and chat, or I might not know that person at all. And so through those conversations, you're able to be more intentional about creating those water cooler moments. The other thing we know about innovation is innovation often happens by a single person who creates an idea, and then it goes to a group that further develop that idea. So that is why, even before COVID, I always have said you need those individual places where people can focus and think, and the collaborative places where they can come together and grow and develop an idea. And we need to do both. I agree, Partha, we need to do both, but creativity and innovation, man, that's where life happens, right? So you're absolutely right. We can't just focus on the productive end and production. It's got to include the creative element.
No, absolutely. And I think, Partha, just my comment, I think when CXOs mention productivity to them, productivity actually comes through innovation and creativity. Is I think kind
Mm,
of
mm.
this is intrinsic in it. But great. I think Lisa, there are a few more questions, but we're already at the top of the hour. I think it was wonderful chatting with you, getting to exchange notes, and I really wish you all the best for your book release coming soon.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you, and thank you so much to everybody who showed up.
Thanks, audience. I wish you a good night and a good day. I Somebody from our end is gonna drop you a note after that, and if there are any questions, we will take that up. Take care. Stay safe.